Cause number 154-6111, the state of Texas versus Antonio Armstrong Jr. We, the jury, find the defendant, Antonio Armstrong Jr., guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment. It's signed a foreperson of the jury.
Houston, Texas, July 29th, 2016, 1:40 in the morning. A teenage boy calls 911 with a story that will shock the nation.
Houston 911, do you need medical, police, or fire?
Gonna be police. He's got with a transfer. Call Meadow. He's whispering, advising he just heard gunshots in the parents' room.
What's the cross street at the corner?
Down upstairs when I was with neighbors, something like that. And I was trying to keep her.
Is this a house?
Yes.
And your name?
AJ.
Any medical attention needed?
I heard gunshots, so I don't really know.
In your parents' bedroom?
Yes.
Inside a quiet upscale home in southwest Houston, former NFL player Antonio Armstrong Sr. and his wife Dawn lay in their bed, shot execution style in the head. The killer had left a chilling handwritten note on the kitchen counter. "I have been watching you for a long time. Come get me." There was no sign of forced entry. The home's alarm system showed no doors or windows had been opened all night. Within hours, Houston police arrested a suspect, their own son, 16-year-old Antonio Armstrong Jr., known to everyone as AJ.
And then I explained to the cop, like, what I saw, and, like, I just, like, personally felt bad, because, like, I saw the guy, like, I feel like I should have done something, but, I mean...
Well, did you physically see somebody, or...?
No, like, I saw him running.
For 7 years, AJ Armstrong would face 3 separate murder trials. 2 juries couldn't decide his fate, and throughout it all, AJ sat in court with a confident smile on his face, certain he would walk free. But in the 3rd trial, prosecutors discovered evidence that had been hiding in plain sight for 7 years, evidence written in blood. And when the verdict was finally read, that smile would disappear forever. Antonio Armstrong Sr. was born in Houston's 5th Ward and escaped poverty through football. He became an All-American linebacker at Texas A&M, was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers in 1995, and played in the NFL and CFL before injuries ended his career.
He was definitely a leader to me, whether if it was leading by, giving a few words of encouragement, whether if it was by leading by example. Leadership was probably his best quality.
He was twice All-Southwest Conference and once an All-American, and he simply knew how to win. With Armstrong as a driving force, his 4 A&M teams fashioned a record of 42 victories, just 5 losses and a tie, finishing on top of the SWC standings every year.
He met Dawn at church. They married, and Antonio adopted her son, Josh. They had 2 more children, AJ and daughter Kara. The family opened first-class training gym in Bel Air. Antonio became a motivational speaker and associate pastor. They appeared to be living the American dream. AJ seemed destined to follow in his father's footsteps. Athletic and charismatic, he attended the Kincaid School, one of Houston's most prestigious private schools. But in 2016, AJ was kicked out due to failing grades. Text messages presented in court revealed a family in crisis. Dawn accused AJ of marijuana use, drinking, and constant lying. In one text, she wrote, "You ignore every rule we set. You have shown us that you don't give a damn about what we say. You are out of control. So disrespectful." Dawn threatened to disconnect his phone. She texted, "I'm so disappointed in you." But the most chilling message came months earlier. "The alarm doesn't lie. You lie." That alarm system would become the key to solving this case. On July 28, 2016, the Armstrong family went to bed. At 9:52 p.m., the home's ADT alarm was armed. The doors were locked. At 1:08 a.m., AJ Armstrong's cell phone was removed from its charger. Prosecutors would later argue this was when he left his bedroom and descended the stairs with his father's .22 caliber pistol. At 1:40 a.m., AJ called 911.
Did it sound like a handgun, rifle, or shotgun?
I'm not able to out there. I don't know if it's anything like that. I know my dad has a gun. She's in the school right next to there.
Okay, can you hear anything else that's going on?
I feel like it's loud.
During the 16-minute call, AJ said he was hiding in his bedroom closet. He said he heard gunshots from his parents' room. When asked about guns, AJ said, "I don't know much about guns, but my dad keeps one in his bedroom drawer." During the call, AJ could be heard saying, "How did you get into our house?" and "It's all my fault." But here's what AJ never said. He never asked if his parents were okay. He asked 4 times if he could get his sister, but not once did he ask about his mother and father. At 1:46 a.m., police arrived. AJ disarmed the alarm and let them in. Officers found Antonio and Dawn Armstrong in their bed. Both had been shot in the head at point-blank range. Pillows had been placed over their faces. Dawn was shot twice and was already dead. Antonio Sr. died at the hospital. On the kitchen counter sat Antonio's .22 caliber pistol and a note. "I have been watching you for a long time. Come get me." There was no forced entry. The alarm showed no doors or windows had been opened since 9:52 p.m. The only time it was disarmed was when AJ let police inside. At 7:30 a.m., 6 hours after the talk, murders, HPD Lieutenants Jimmy Dodson and Kenneth Daigneault interrogated AJ Armstrong.
So if there was something more, something different that happened, this is kind of the time to talk about it. Regardless of what your relationship with your dad, if it's good or if it's not so good, and, and you just don't feel comfortable talking about it, that's a whole separate issue.
Right.
Ultimately, we need to figure out what's going to happen, what happened today.
Exactly.
And there's 2 ways. I mean, it's going to be either, you telling us exactly what happened, and if this is what it is, then that's what it is. But
right.
ultimately, if it's something different, it's you telling us what happened, and then ultimately everything would match up.
For 52 minutes, they questioned him. AJ showed no emotion, no tears, no shock. When told his mother was dead, he barely reacted. Detective Dodson later said, "There's just this void of emotion. 16-year-olds are all about emotion, and he is just chill throughout." 6 hours after the 911 call, AJ's story suddenly changed. He told detectives, "I saw the guy. I saw him running." He described a masked black man, but he never mentioned seeing anyone during his 911 call.
It was definitely a guy. It wasn't a girl. There wasn't like long hair or anything like that. I mean, they had it was like a mask, and like you could only see the eyes and the mouth, but he looked like a black guy, but I'm not like 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure it was an African American, and like I'd say like 6 feet maybe, somewhere around there. I couldn't give you like an age range. I didn't really like get to see his face or anything like that.
Never mentioned a masked intruder in the 911 call. And so if you actually saw that, that's the first thing you say whenever you call a 911. There's a guy in my house, there's a murder in my house, I heard gunshots. But that's not what he says. He says, "I heard gunshots coming from my parents' room."
Detectives asked about the murder weapon. AJ said, "I just know it's like a pistol. I think it's a .22, but I'm not 100% positive. The only time I've ever used it was when I was 8 years old." But during the 911 call, AJ told the dispatcher exactly where his father kept the gun. Detectives had caught their first lie. Then detectives confronted AJ with disturbing evidence, a bullet hole in his bedroom floor that went through to the ceiling outside his parents' bedroom. AJ had covered it with socks. AJ initially said he was showing a friend how the gun sounded.
Like, hey, well, not really. He was like me. I was like, hey, like, have you ever shot a gun before? And they were like, nah, I've never done it. And I was like, do you want me to show you how to? And like, I like went and checked the 3 places, and the gun was under my dad's bed, and I like laid the pillow. I laid my pillow, and then like a blanket over it and a blanket under it, thinking like that would stop it, but I guess it did not stop it.
Then he changed his story. His friend wasn't there. Forensic analysis showed AJ fired the gun through blankets and pillows, the same method used to kill his parents. Prosecutors would call this a test run. At the top of the stairs outside his parents' bedroom, investigators found a burn mark on the carpet. In AJ's room, they found a rubbing alcohol bottle that tested positive for gasoline. AJ claimed he was playing with matches weeks earlier and accidentally dropped one.
Okay, so I know you guys saw the black little thing on the carpet when you walk upstairs. Yeah, I was like playing with matches and I dropped it. I dropped one and didn't realize it, and I just walked away. And then like the carpet set on fire, and then my dad came and confronted me about it, and I was like, I don't know, because I was like, it's stupid that I was playing with matches. I can't just admit. I was like, I don't know. I had nothing to do with it.
Throughout the interrogation, AJ repeated 19 times, "I had nothing to do with it."
You know, that's all part of the way we investigate things. That's how we get to the bottom of things, is by using our resources.
All right, so I can tell you now, there's like nothing that will come back that it's on me. There will be no gunpowder. There's my fingerprints on, nothing like that will come back on me. I had nothing to do with this.
Okay.
But he never asked about the investigation. He never asked who killed his parents. He showed no interest in finding their killer. At the end of the interview, 16-year-old Antonio Armstrong Jr. was arrested and charged with 2 counts of capital murder. The prosecution's case centered on the home's alarm system. Jason DaCosta, vice president of Alarm.com, testified he reviewed hundreds of pages of alarm records. The system had a 99% reliability rate. It was functioning perfectly the night of the murders. The alarm was armed at 9:52 p.m. No doors or windows were opened until AJ disarmed it at 1:46 a.m. when police arrived. Motion sensors recorded movement from the 3rd floor, where AJ's bedroom was, to the 2nd floor approximately 30 minutes before the 911 call.
ADT alarm expert Tim Rader's testimony will help their case. The defense, for instance, told jurors in the month of July alone back in 2016,
there was at least 77 different errors in those alarm records. Those alarm records are absolutely useless.
There was 128 total between June and July, only related to how people can come in and out of the house and the downstairs motion detector not even pick them up.
Prosecutor Ryan Trask explained, "The alarm records were a puzzle the defense just could not get around. Nobody breaks into a house, goes through the house to find the homeowner's gun, makes sure it's loaded, runs back around to the other side of the bed, and kills them. That makes no sense." The killer came from inside the house. Prosecutors presented 19,000 pages of text messages showing the toxic relationship between AJ and his parents. But more importantly, they showed messages AJ sent to friends at the same time he was texting his parents, revealing a pattern of manipulation and lies. Prosecutor John Jordan stated, "When we showed simultaneous text messages, what he's telling his parents versus what he's really doing, it showed in real time how he operates." The 911 call became devastating evidence. Prosecutor John Jordan emphasized, 4 times during that 16-minute call, AJ asks if he can get his sister. But he never asks about his parents. To get to Kara's room, he would have to pass his parents' bedroom. To never look in there, never say, "Hey Mom, Dad, are you okay?" That's powerful evidence.
From late out of the house to go get his sister, he has to pass by his parents' bedroom. To never look in there, never to say, "Hey Mom, Dad, are you okay?"
Prosecutors presented their theory. At 1:08 a.m., AJ unplugged his phone and retrieved his father's pistol, the same gun he'd test-fired days earlier. He entered their bedroom and shot Dawn twice in the head, then shot Antonio once. He placed pillows over their faces, staged the note, and returned to his room before calling 911. Prosecutor Ryan Trask noted, "Dawn was shot twice. That tells you everything about the anger toward her. His animosity for his mother was so evident." During the interrogation, AJ made a bizarre statement. "I'm not saying my dad put a hit out on my mom and something went wrong." Prosecutor Trask explained, "That shows intimate knowledge of the crime scene, because that's exactly what it looks like. Dawn was killed first. How would he know that unless he was there?" On April 2nd, 2019, AJ Armstrong's first trial began. He was 19 years old, tried as an adult for crimes committed at 16. Defense attorney Rick DeToto argued police rushed to judgment focusing on AJ while ignoring his older brother Josh as a suspect. Josh had been kicked out of the Armstrong home after throwing a party with drugs and alcohol. He was struggling with drug use and lived less than a mile away. The defense argued Josh knew the garage code and could have entered. DeToto hammered the lack of physical evidence. No gunshot residue on AJ's hands, no fingerprints on the weapon, no bloody clothes. They have no physical evidence linking my client to these murders. They're trying to convict a 16-year-old boy on circumstantial evidence alone, DeToto argued. After days of deliberation, the jury deadlocked. 8 jurors voted guilty. 4 voted not guilty. Mistrial. AJ walked out on house arrest. For him, it was a victory.
Reports that it is hopelessly deadlocked and it would be useless to continue deliberations. Because of that, the court declares a mistrial.
In October 2022, AJ faced a second jury. Prosecutors now had enhanced cell phone evidence showing his phone was unplugged at 1:08 a.m., 32 minutes before the 911 call. The defense again pointed to Josh. But there was a problem. Josh had suffered a complete psychotic break after his parents' deaths. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, hearing voices and experiencing delusions. A state psychiatrist testified, Josh Armstrong had a complete psychotic break as a result of the trauma of his parents' murders. This was not a pre-existing condition. Josh's girlfriend testified there were no signs of mental illness before the murders. Josh had been playing video games with his cousin all night. He had an alibi.
Testimony was about AJ's older brother, Josh. Now, previously, the defense alluded to Josh being an alternate suspect in the case, which is why prosecutors may be trying to get ahead of that. Today, the doctor says, in his opinion, Josh was, quote, grief-stricken and unable to cope with the murders of his parents, which eventually led to his schizophrenia diagnosis.
The jury deadlocked again. This time, 8 jurors voted not guilty. 4 voted guilty. Mistrial number 2. AJ's confidence grew. He had beaten 2 juries. Legal experts believed prosecutors couldn't win, but Harris County made a stunning decision. A third trial. Preparing for the third trial, prosecutors re-examined every piece of evidence. That's when they found it. Microscopic blood spatter on AJ's shirt from the night of the murders. For 7 years, this evidence sat in storage. The blood spatters were the diameter of a mechanical pencil, so small they'd been missed initially. But enhanced testing confirmed it was Antonio Armstrong Sr.'s blood. Blood spatter expert Celestina Rossi testified, the size of that spatter, the surface area is very, very small. In flight, they are drying. When they're deposited on the shirt, they're not soaking in. But they are there, and they are the victim's blood. The defense argued contamination during evidence handling, but prosecutors insisted they had their smoking gun. Prosecutor John Jordan stated, the discovery of the blood, we don't need it to convict him. His own words in the 911 call, his own words in the interrogation. Frankly, it is overwhelming. But having his father's blood on his shirt? That's powerful. On August 1st, 2023, 7 years after the murders, AJ Armstrong's third and final trial began. Prosecutors brought the crime scene to the courtroom with life-size recreations. They presented enhanced alarm system testimony, real-time text message analysis, and the blood evidence. Throughout the trial, AJ sat calmly, sometimes smiling. He had beaten 2 juries. Why not a third? Rick DeToto fought back, arguing the alarm system was unreliable and questioning the blood evidence. A defense expert testified the alarm wasn't properly installed and motion detectors were unreliable. DeToto told the jury, where is the physical evidence? No gunshot residue, no fingerprints, no bloody clothes. The state wants you to convict a boy based on a theory, not facts. This is a reckless prosecution. Prosecutor John Jordan countered, this defendant said in that interrogation room, I'm not saying my dad put a hit out on my mom and something went wrong. How does a 16-year-old know what the crime scene looks like? Because he created it. Don Armstrong was shot twice, killed first. The animosity he felt for his mother is written in blood. Prosecutor Ryan Trask added, it was really important to show this jury that AJ was not a typical 16-year-old. We told jurors in opening statements, you may never know why he did it, but you are going to know he did it. On August 16, 2023, after deliberating 10.5 hours, the jury returned. AJ Armstrong sat at the defense table. His wife Kate held their young son in the gallery. His grandmother and family held hands, praying. The courtroom was packed. The judge asked, "Will the defendant please rise?" AJ stood, a slight smile still on his face.
Cause number 1546111, the state of Texas versus Antonio Armstrong Jr. We, the jury, find the defendant, Antonio Armstrong Jr., guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment. It's signed a foreperson of the jury.
The smile vanished. For 7 years he had maintained his innocence. 2 mistrials, 2 hung juries. But the third time was different. In the gallery, Kate broke down in tears. The family that supported AJ, through 3 trials, was shattered. Because AJ was 16 at the time of the murders, the death penalty wasn't an option. The judge sentenced him. Antonio Armstrong Jr., you have been found guilty by a jury of your peers of 2 counts of capital murder. You are hereby sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. AJ would spend 40 years behind bars before becoming eligible for parole. By then he'd be 63. His son would be middle-aged. The smiling teenager who thought he was smart enough to get away with murder was going to prison for life. After the verdict, prosecutors spoke with jurors about what convinced them. Prosecutor Ryan Trask revealed, "The jury said the main factors were the shot AJ fired through his bedroom floor with the murder weapon, the fire he set outside his parents' bedroom, and most importantly, the 911 call and his statement to police. They said, we didn't need to discuss Josh. It was AJ's own words. It was AJ's lies." Prosecutor John Jordan added, "You cannot escape your own words. The 911 call and that interrogation, there's no logical argument other than the defendant's guilt. When people try talking about whether he did it or not, they never want to discuss his own words, because he's tied to them, and he can't escape."
It's emotional for you?
Yeah, because he's guilty. He's absolutely guilty.
What was it that made you think that, without a doubt, he was guilty?
Well, there were several things. One, when he said that he saw someone running down the stairs, it was clearly made up. It was dark. He said he was African American wearing a mask. Well, it was dark. And if it truly was your brother, Josh, wouldn't you recognize his physique? I could tell you any one of these people here running away because I've watched them for 3 weeks now. I know how they walk. And so I could, whether their feet turn out, their feet turn in, whatever, I would have known. And he would have known that was his brother. So that was clearly made up.
Defense attorney Rick DeToto called it the worst moment of my career. AJ's family, his grandmother Kay Winston, his uncles and supporters, maintain his innocence. They call the conviction a miscarriage of justice and vow to continue fighting.
The statement is, we have stood by our grandson's side every day since 2016. Everyone in the family fully supports him and believes in his innocence and the charges.
AJ's legal battle isn't over. During jury deliberations, a federal lawsuit was filed claiming Celestina Rossi had been accused of planting evidence in a separate murder case in Montgomery County. The defense argues this calls into question all of Rossi's testimony and raises the possibility the blood evidence was contaminated or planted. A Texas appeals court has ordered a new hearing on this issue. If successful, AJ could get a 4th trial or his conviction could be overturned. Prosecutors remain confident. John Jordan stated, "Even without the blood, we had overwhelming evidence. The 911 call alone is devastating. His statement to police is devastating. The alarm records are devastating. This jury got it right." Ryan Trask added, "It was just as important for us to clear Josh's name in our community as it was to hold AJ accountable. Josh was a victim too. The question remains, why? Why would a 16-year-old murder his own parents?" The Armstrong case divides people to this day. Some see overwhelming circumstantial evidence and 3 juries that ultimately convicted. They see a teenager who lied, manipulated, and showed no emotion. Others see a rush to judgment. A boy convicted with no gunshot residue, no fingerprints, and questionable blood evidence. They see an unreliable alarm system and a mentally ill brother who was never fully investigated. But 3 juries have spoken. And AJ Armstrong will spend the next 40 years in prison because of their verdict. On July 29, 2016, 2 parents were murdered in their sleep. Whether A.J. Armstrong is a cold-blooded killer or a wrongfully convicted teenager, one thing is certain. The Armstrong family, once the picture of the American dream, was destroyed from within. Antonio Sr. and Dawn Armstrong rest together in peace. But for the survivors, there will never be peace. Only questions. Only pain. Only the haunting memory of what was lost. And for A.J. Armstrong, if he is indeed guilty, he has 40 years to contemplate one final question. Was it worth it?